Time for our first Techie Talk of 2024 with State Representative Techie Chan of Quincy. Happy New Year, Techie.
Happy New Year, Joe. It's great to see you in 2024.
Hard to believe. Here we are, brand new year. How were your holidays?
Very quiet. We did Christmas dinner. My nephew came up from Virginia, and we had a great catch up of everyone. And my mom was a little tired going into like 8 o'clock, so it's a pretty quick dinner. My sister-in-law unfortunately was ill, so that again, second year in a row, we got one out of two spouses from my brother's family, and and I made dinner, and it was I didn't send you a picture of this year's dinner, but that was a couple of days of putting it together. And we reached that age, we don't really need presents at this point. I mean, at a certain age, it's not as important, right? So, and just a quiet break. I spent a lot of time getting stuff done at home. Just home repairs here and there. Talking like a little electric burner for the stove and so forth. There was a whole lot of that kind of stuff being done around the house. And, I finally got able to pick up those giant tree branches from the storm 4 weeks ago in the front yard. I was dragging tree branches around last week when the weather was good, trying to just get them off the front yard. So yeah, I mean, I wish I could say it was very eventful. The one other thing, of course, you may not be aware is that for the purpose of campaign finance, it's a calendar year. So, last week was also last dash on figuring what campaign donations were, figuring out what campaign expenses are. This week is reconciliation on your campaign expenses for disclosure, so you're properly disclosing, and year-end report is due January 22nd. So I generally keep up with this stuff on a monthly basis, so I'm not really concerned. But again, it was a quiet week going to New Year and quiet start to the year. It was a good chance to, no joke, I play up on a lot of paperwork to make sure that my campaign finance report is in compliance.
That's good. We certainly want to make sure everything is legit with the state. I know the Secretary of State just this week drew the names for the order of ballot for the primary on March 5th.
Yeah, I expect to be a very quiet primary, to be honest with you. The ballot, does positioning matter? Probably not. I mean, I know it does matter in cases where you have much more low profile races. People sometimes just instinctively picks the first thing on the ballot just because that's what a lot of candidates hope, is that they just take the first name and that's that. That's not always the case, particularly high profile races where a lot more name recognition, that doesn't really matter. What's actually pretty interesting is that President Biden is not on the ballot in the New Hampshire primary, because the Democratic National Committee has made South Carolina the first primary for the Democratic primary. But New Hampshire's law states that they have to be the first one. They move their dates around in the primary based on whatever the first primary is. So there's a write-in campaign attempt for President Biden because New Hampshire is not going to have a second election for the Democratic primary. I don't know why this was lost on the people at the Democratic National Committee, that we all know here that the primaries are set by the states, and the dates are set by statute or provided to a person in charge of dealing with this, in many cases the Secretary of State, on when these dates occur. So I got some interesting emails from the Maura Healey campaign and the Bill Keating campaigns about organizing for Joe Biden writing campaign in New Hampshire.
Interesting. So they will not have the first in the nation primary?
No, they are first in the nation primary because of the law they have.
Oh.
So they're not doing a second primary, but for the purpose of Democratic National Committee, the first in the Democratic primary is South Carolina. But it doesn't make sense because even though the Democratic National Committee dictates which is the first primary, the state doesn't go along with it, and this is what happened. So there will not be a second primary in New Hampshire unless the legislature changed the law to have another primary in New Hampshire. So this is fine for an incumbent president with nominal opposition, but this is going to be a problem if you don't have an incumbent Democratic president. And it becomes an open primary situation, and this becomes kind of problematic. And again, this also reminds everyone on the call here that states do dictate local elections for federal offices.
Mhm.
It's enshrined in the Constitution that that's how it's done. But, and here's the but, primary races, party races, are not part of what we consider like federal elections. Federal elections for final candidates are in the Constitution. Choosing a party nominee to go to that final is a state by state whatever
Right.
decision making. Like, there's a caucuses around the country, but they don't have to have a caucus. They could change the law. Or some states may not even want to address a law, just let the local party figures figure it out. For example, at the local level, if a nominee dies or is incapacitated or denies the nomination after winning the primary, the local Democratic or local Republican city or town committee, depending where you are, can choose the next candidate in some places. Some places can choose a candidate in case of death prior to a primary, for example. An example of that is Nyman, Bob Nyman in Hanover, many years ago died prior to the Democratic primary, and the Hanover town committee picked Rhonda, his wife, to be the nominee, even though nomination papers have been closed because he died in July, and then September primary. So there is no like special election for a nominee.
Right. Yeah.
The party has its internal mechanisms. So primary politics confuses a lot of folks because it's like, who actually chooses how these Democratic and Republican, of course, Libertarian, Green Party, and other parties, nominees to run on the final ballot works. In some cases, the state law has a lot to say with it. In some cases, it's a little bit more formal, informal, for example, in caucus forms, or, as I just said, an example, in the case of tragedy during a campaign, whether it be pre-primary or post-primary, a lot is left to the local political party.
Okay, Civics 101 from Representative Chan today.
Yeah, it's you can, as your viewers know and listeners know, I do pay too much attention to these little nuances in politics, and it's also reflective of many years of watching campaigns. Not like I watch all 160 House and 40 House and Senate races. It's not like I watch 200 races, but I do pay a little bit of attention. And Dan Webster's another example. He's you got the Republican nominee, and then resigned after the Republican nominee, and then they essentially the local party essentially appointed a replacement for Webster in that race. For example, another one, I think it's Pembroke. That was that case. So there's some simple examples, and of course we have a special election coming up. The Representative Durant's seat, which is in Worcester County. Actually, I think it's next Tuesday. I'm trying to remember correctly. I think it's coming up next Tuesday for that special election. And the funny thing is, the way the statute's set up. Hang on, I'm going to look at my phone really fast. When is it? I'm sorry. I think it's Tuesday the 6th in February. So whoever wins that becomes the state rep. But nomination papers for re-election for 2024 will occur sometime in mid-late February. So by the time this person wins the February 6th special election, they're starting all over running for office again, getting nomination papers to run, because the state law dictates that you have to have a special election and a primary election within 90 to 180. It was 120 to 90 to 120 days set by the legislature. So after the resignation of the last one, so when Peter Durant resigned from the House, it was prior to the beginning of the year. So you could take a special election seat for the Senate. So that's sworn in there. A vacant seat triggered requiring for the legislature to pick a day. And then it actually creates this kind of quirky thing. Is literally you win a seat and you got to start running all over again for nomination papers with literally like days later.
Right. Yeah, we saw the same thing here in the city in Ward 4.
Yeah, and it's the case of City of Quincy. Under its charter, if you're a counselor and you leave office for any reason prior to the, let me rephrase that, in the first half of your term, first year of your term, you have to run a special election. Doesn't matter what day, as long as it's the first year of your term. If you resign or leave for any reason, in the second year of your term, then it's appointed by the city council.
Right. Yep. Yep. Interesting. Well, what's happening at the State House these days, Jackie?
No, it's been very quiet. You know, there was a ceremonial opening session yesterday. Not a lot of people, not a lot of fanfare. The Constitution requires this. Even though we run a 2-year session under the rules, under the Constitution, our sessions are set on a 1-year calendar. But even though that's how the Constitution works, I mean, the internal functioning of the legislature is up to both branches of how they actually do operations, and that's the rules. Joint Route 10, I talk about it all the time. February 7th, it's coming up. Hope to sit with my co-chair and get through the remainder of the list of things we would like to get done. I will send a list over again and we'll negotiate sometime in January. Obviously, the mayor's inaugural is coming up on Monday, 10 a.m. The mayor's swearing in, and he has an evening inaugural. And obviously, the city of Boston's mayor is on Tuesday night. We're looking at likely the governor's budget being released the 24th of January pursuant to law. That's a Wednesday, and we also expect the governor to have her State of State address on the 24th. That's kind of what we're projecting out right now. And the legislature committees have been having public hearings all through December, believe it or not. But as we come across Joint Rule 10, you know, people at least have all the bills heard under the rules. So there is a crunch from a lot of committees to get these bills heard. Now, not to brag, but all my big hearings were done before August 1st. And then we had some speed up hearings in the fall. So not like I'm bragging, but I'm very cooperative and helpful, very helpful co-chair that was willing to get the lion's share of the work done before the August break. And gave us more time in the fall to kind of focus on you know, what we think the priorities should be of the committee. And like I said, until we agree, there is no priorities. I can say anything I want, but to the two chairs agree the priorities, there are no priorities. So, you know,
Put it out there and see what sticks, right?
yeah. And obviously, we're watching budget revenues, as you've probably seen in the news. We're well below projection right now for FY24. The governor's 9C cuts may be a real thing coming sometime in 2024. If we don't have great Christmas numbers, and we should be getting DOR Department of Revenue budget numbers. I'm looking at the calendar on the bottom of my screen, probably by the end of this week. For January revenue, there's December revenues. It gives a new projection going into tax season. And obviously, we're going to start the budget process. So I should get a notice from the Ways and Means Chair soon for most likely a meeting in late February, early March to discuss budget request priorities. And my office has set up meetings with agencies my committee oversees to discuss their budget priorities and what their other policies are, their priorities remain of the session. And then once Joint Rule 10 gets through, we'll have a better sense, you know, what the big bills are coming out. So, so yeah, this is really a setup month. Everything's trying to get set up for the remaining 6 months of formal sessions.
Speaking of your priorities, what are some of the things you'd like to see happen in this new year?
Well, some of the stuff is actually really more of a interesting behind the scenes work. For example, obviously, you all know my data equity bill got done. We still need to have regulations promoted by administration and finance. We got those meetings being set up. We're talking about better consumer notification on gambling, particularly gambling addiction. Working with the EPA should that and try to work with the Gaming Commission on some better data collection and some clarity on information on compulsive gambling. You know, we are working on some stuff on the committee. I mean, we've talked about data privacy in the past. I want to do another reminder at some point today about consumer protection and safety regarding new fraud things coming out. That no matter what law you pass, it's still up to all of us to try to not try our best not to be scammed. But yeah, I mean, part of it is looking at some of those consumer bills. Ticket reselling. I know everyone has an issue regarding the value of market value of tickets in secondary market. Looking to try to close this book finally on the regulatory process on the secondary market tickets regarding property disclosures and also greater oversight by the state on these ticket resellers. I can't control the price, folks. This is the one they always want to do, make it, control the price. This is not a regulated industry like that like used to be when the plane industry, remember airlines used to be regulated, the feds used to regulate the price of plane tickets. We can't do that, but we can try to create some better disclosures and try not to do bait and switch and things like that on secondary markets. So we're looking at trying to figure it out. We're probably going to try to get it done this year. Anticipating of the climate bill, even though it's not on my committee, I was on the conference committee last time out on a climate, energy bill. So I'm trying to get some field trips set up on some energy, renewable energy technologies. Nothing on the market today, but something down the road to get a sense of where we're going to be regarding new tech on future climate change prevention through new energy development. So working on those field trips. I got the beer distributors field trip coming up for the committee members. So we're going to go have the committee members visit a beer distributor, visit the warehouses, show them the nuts and bolts of how you get your beer. So yeah, it's a combination of some legislation, some field trips for the committee, some personal field trips on continuing education for myself. And it's election cycle, folks, 2024. So I'm gearing up for any potential candidates, which translates to continued fundraising, planning to get my nomination papers signed quickly, and then start start planning out in case there is one, what the plan is. So yeah, I mean, I have a lot of different things in my mind that I'm juggling. Of course, got a personal life such as this.
So obviously the state constitutional officers are not up this year, right? We've already done that.
That's correct. I mean, it's every 4 years for them, and we're in the bi-cycle. When it's not a president, it's the state constitutional officers. So we easily remember it. The county official is a little tricky because some are 4 and some are 6.
Right.
So county's always a little bit tricky, and of course, all of Congress is up, and Senator Warren's up this year. Obviously, there won't be a Democratic primary of any seriousness for the U.S. Senate. I don't see any of the congressional delegation in the state facing very serious challenge, to be honest. But on the state delegation, some seats were very close. You may recall 2 seats last year in the House had to be decided by the House on review of ballots because Constitution gives the House the ability to review House contested races. And we went with the winner, which just happened to be Democrats, but they did have the majority of ballots by a hair.
Yeah.
And obviously, people in close races, seats tend to be picked up again in a final election situation. And obviously, we're in Massachusetts, where Democrat and Republicans now primary each other more often than they have in the past. It's not just uniquely Democrat, the Republican Party as well. So, obviously, I tell folks you're going to fundraise and prepare for your next re-elections in terms of strategizing. Get ready, always get ready for 2 campaigns. You got to be able to finance and operate 2 potential campaigns, and just hope only one happens, or perhaps best case none.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. You're obviously running again, Tacky.
I am. I hope you all still like me. Can't say that everyone does. I mean, I'm not that kind of person that believes that everyone has to love me. But yeah, I mean, it's been a good run, having a lot of fun still, as you can all tell by me and Joe in our weekly conversations. And it's great stimulation. But at some point, like everybody else, we'll decide another career change. But right now, I'm not looking for one. And to my knowledge, the entire delegation, Speaker Mariano and Bruce Ayers and Senator Keenan, and all of us are running for re-election.
Yeah, Ron even said he wants to continue as speaker too, so he's obviously enjoying it.
Well, we don't have to vote for speaker in 2024, so
right.
He's pretty much guaranteed a job for at least another year. Ron isn't listening to this. He's like, "What is Tacky saying now?" But speakership is a 2-year term. But anything can happen. But I haven't talked to the speaker since before the holiday, and he seems to be having a lot of fun. He's in good health. obviously there was a bit of stress in the month of December as we don't want to rehash because of this weird supplemental budget procedural thing I had to teach you all already. So you can go back and listen to that very boring podcast of technical stuff from me on how rules work. But yeah, no, he's done a great job leading the building. And I think one of the things that was understated is the volume of major pieces of legislation has been able to move in a relatively short period of time, whether it be econ dev or windmills or healthcare, and get it to the governor's desk. And honestly, the body is actually fairly well managed, despite COVID. And you have basically two classes that were elected, basically three almost. The 2019 class, went to 2020 COVID. They had the 21 class that was sworn in and mostly empty building.
Mhm.
And you have the 23 class, which is the first in-person class for a full term. So you have basically three classes that have gone through much more difficult transition in the building in terms of learning how things work, engaging the chairs, engaging other membership, engaging leadership, engaging the governors folks. I mean, if you're not physically there, it actually makes it a little tougher. But the speakers done a great job on making sure all the members have been heard, and accessibility has been very good with the speaker. And I've never heard of anybody say that the speaker did not listen to them. Everybody has sufficient accessibility. They don't feel like they've been slighted.
And I see that former Governor Baker's portrait has been unveiled.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet. It'll be in
Oh.
the. I'll probably have to pop into the governor's office, and we'll see who gets bumped off. They have about a dozen or so most recent governor's portraits in the governor's lobby, but at some point there's no more space.
Oh, sure, yeah.
They do fill the whole walls, so I'm curious of who gets on the who on the end is bumped off, because I can't name you governors before Volpe. So.
Okay.
It gets to a point where I just look at the pictures too. I'm like, I can't name these. But no, it's a tradition continues, and the governor Baker, I mean, gets a portrait. I'm actually not sure what's going on in the state senate, because that also happens with past senate presidents. But people remember in 2017 going to 18, there was all kinds of senate president drama.
Yes.
So I'm not sure what's going to go on over there.
Interesting.
House speakers get photographs. You go to speaker's office, you can see the photographs of many House speakers prior, as opposed to the Senate, which will hang some of them in the Senate reading room. Maybe there'll be pictures, old pictures in the Senate president's lobby, which I haven't actually visited in some time, but. Yeah, these are old traditions, but in particular, the portrait for the governor. I think the portrait was actually privately paid for. Right?
I think it was from his campaign account or something like that, but not public funds. Yeah.
Yeah, it is not publicly funded, that portrait. It's campaign funds or other private money has to pay for that portrait.
Right.
And
right.
the thing is, the portrait that you pay for, and you basically gift to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Right, because you own it if you paid for it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's essentially what happens. You gift it. So, if you're worried about your taxpayer dollars going out, it's my understanding that your taxpayer is not paying for that portrait.
Right. Yeah, that's well, he's having fun now running the NCAA. So,
well, hey, March Madness is only a little bit, not a little bit ways off. So I'm sure that he's getting calls from all his buddies for tickets.
I'm sure that's true too. Hey, I understand that the legislature is going to be looking over some ballot questions that got the okay this week.
Oh, did they? I missed that boat. Apparently, I got to look at status news. Yeah, I mean, they got this round in. Those ballot questions go to the respective committees, and then if the legislature actually doesn't become law by, I believe, the first week of May, then the ballot initiatives will have to go for a second round of signatures. To get done by August, and then they're preparing to get on the ballot in the ballot campaign, and you have formation of ballot committees at Office of Campaign Finance, and they will fundraise for that. So, catch me up to speed. Which ballot questions have been certified?
Two that stand out are one, eliminating the service wage, the wage for tipped workers. And number two, the one that would deal with app-based drivers, if you will.
Okay, so the first one is about the so-called minimum wage for service workers such as servers in restaurants. I believe it's like $6.25 currently if you don't
675, I think. Yeah.
75. So yeah, that's the minimum pay per hour. And then if I remember I'm trying to remember how this law works. It's been a while, but if you get the 675 on top of tips, but if your tip wage hours don't equal the minimum wage, you have to pay minimum wage.
Right. You got it. Yep.
I believe this actually increases the minimum to the minimum wage,
Correct. Yep.
66.75. It eliminates the concept of tip differential, so you don't have the balance differential.
Right.
We're one of the few countries that tip, by the way. Most people don't realize this.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either until I started reading about it.
Yeah, I whenever leave the country, it's always a little shocking. Although they do expect so-called tourists. They look like a tourist, they almost expect you to just leave something extra because they know you're from America. But
Interesting.
yeah, if they find you're from America, they actually expect it. But certain countries don't. Like if you live a tip in Japan, it's incredibly insulting. Very
Oh, really?
yeah, very, very insulting. Because from their standpoint, they're wage workers and or hourly workers, and their expectation is you do your job, you do it well, and you shouldn't have to give extra money for folks that are pride in their job. So I
Mhm.
mean that's part of it too. The second one is a little bit controversial because only part of the unions want to back this bill regarding app-based drivers trying to create a strange hybrid situation with some collective bargaining for your ride share folks, Uber and Lyft, where they have some like some collective bargaining component, and then they're kind of like treated like full-time employees, but they're also not treated like full-time employees. So imagine if you're an employee that can, for any boss that can pick your own hours, and you can show up when you want to show up and work when you want to work, but you want to have the same benefits, as if your boss told you when to show up. It's really uniquely a problem in that specific industry because of the nature of the economic model. So, yeah, it's a little peculiar in terms of compared to others like workplace, um, employee protections.
Right.
Um, so right now they consider independent contractors because there's no prohibit for them from being on more than one app. You can be an app share rider for Uber, you can app. You're not exclusive. You can be app share rider. You can work for competition.
Right.
Um, because then that makes them independent contractors, but they want the ability to have like full-time status, sick days, healthcare, food benefits as if they were a dedicated employee. Even though they do have the option to, let's say work for UPS and, do deliveries for Uber on their off time, for example. It's a very interesting, just you hear from those words, it's pretty intricate employee labor laws. And I think the public's gonna have a hard time getting their head around this. As I just gave you a very small example of what you may think like, oh, you can't work for a competitor. Well, yeah, you can if you're an independent contractor.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Because you get a 1099 from anybody you work for, right?
Yeah, I mean, just think about this, guys. If you're working for Uber and your competition is Lyft, but Uber doesn't say you can't work for another competitor. You could work for both companies. I think you could probably work for them simultaneously because you just have to.
I've seen both stickers on some cars. Yeah.
Exactly. And name me another employer that likes the idea of a full-time employee working for a competitor.
Not going to happen. I don't think people at McDonald's want their employees going to Burger King.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. And same thing with realtors, right? You don't want your realtors working for competition. And okay, fine. You're like, well, they're contractors. Well, would you even hire a contractor? Let's say that you hired an accounting contractor, for your business, but your competitors across the street, you would want to, how comfortable are you? Even though they
Right.
have confidentiality clauses for accountants, accountants can't disclose to other people what they're doing, but it's a mindset issue, right?
Mhm.
Maybe in a smaller community, you only got a limited number of professional services. Everyone uses the same people, but there's
Right.
understanding that one has a non-disclosure, so there's no unfair competitive disadvantage. But let's say you have an employee, do you want your employee working for your competitor, after they work for you, or even worse in the case of this app-based ballot question, simultaneously working for your competitor. So
Right.
they can be, working for you and taking calls for your competitor across the street, at the same time. Again, this is uniquely a ride share economic model
Yeah.
for the employees and the contractors. So it could tell, you can see, I kind of get the basics of the intricacy here, and I
It's
think it's
very gray. It's very gray area. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's going to be very difficult to convey to the public intricacies of how this works because, obviously, people want people to be treated well as employees. But then again, you as a consumer dictates the life or death of that rideshare. If you
Mhm.
go below a certain percentage of customer satisfaction, you're no longer allowed to drive for Uber. That's one of the conditions of contract.
Right. Right. And then are these companies, are they required to provide, health insurance or retirement benefits, things of that nature, vacation time? How do you determine all that?
Good question. I'm not sure, but yeah, essentially, yes. They want to make the rideshare companies a employer, make them as full-time employees,
Right.
but the employees get all the benefits of being a contractor,
Mhm. Yeah. So,
including non-compete. They don't have to do non-compete.
right. Yeah. Be an interesting one to see for sure. Read that in the little red booklet that they're going to put out and try and figure it out.
Oh God, it's gonna be awful. These kinds of ballot questions are different, and the campaigns are gonna be so simplified, and they probably are skirting the truth of the advertising. It's again, I expect the advertising campaign to be, largely done by real life employees of both sides. One side dictating they like how things are, and the other side dictating how much it's awful and why it's awful, and other side saying why it's great. And it's probably going to be, putting advertising of competing employees or contractors. It's a little complicated.
Yeah.
Contractors, employers. Yeah, contractor is not an employee. You're going to see what I've just done, um, mixing two words up. The advertising for this is going to be very tricky too, because I can see people not understanding unless you work as one
Hmm.
and treat the two very clearly.
Right.
And
Yeah.
advertising is going to muck it up.
Well, they cherry pick what will benefit their cause, basically. Yeah.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
So, uh,
Um, I know another question was the removal of MCAS as a graduation requirement. I know we've talked about this in the past.
yeah, I mean, MCAS always makes me nervous as a person who standardized tests very poorly, and I amazingly got into college and amazingly actually passed the bar exam, and I did go to an exam school, which is BC High. So, I mean, yeah, I've not been a good exam person. I don't lie about that to people. I've always considered education that you got to be literate and you can do math and you can do everything else afterwards.
Hmm.
Uh, MCAS requires basically like liberal arts education plus going to a college. And I've always scratched my head about some of these other topics. Do you really need to teach towards the exam? And that's where we are. I mean, I didn't go to school teaching towards an exam. It was, highly focused on education, on the basics of what you need to know and be able to learn more. So, you have the skills to be able to learn more because you have
Right.
the basics down. So, one of the criticisms, and a fair criticism, folks, is that, education system is now geared towards teaching to an exam.
Hmm.
Higher demands on school departments and teachers regarding education, and there's also new pressure. People do pick where they want to go move to based on things like MCAS scores, based on
Hmm.
things like college graduation rates, based on high school passage rates. And since the high school passage rate is based on the MCAS, it can dictate property prices. It puts a lot of pressure on communities to teach towards the exam. And you all may not be aware of it, but it's true. People want to go to communities with better education, and an arbitrary exam in some ways, I mean, not always, but in some ways, it dictates
Hmm.
which school teaches best towards an exam.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, again, I mean, I have no problem, making sure that people get the fundamentals down. But, my joke's always been the same, from the Incredibles 2 movie, when did math not become math, right? Um, it gets to the point where I swear people with too many letters in front of their name that has never been in a classroom setting trying to teach this stuff, dictating to people who actually have to be in the trenches, working tirelessly, educating our children.
Mm,
Exactly what we're educating people on.
mhm.
So, and again, there's a lot of new pressures on school departments and teachers regarding minimum requirements, and the MCAS is one of them. So I've always had a head scratcher regarding, the people actually making decisions on exams. Are you teaching in a classroom currently? The answer is
Must,
probably
right, must not, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I always find that kind of problematic. I mean, my attitude is that you're going to do this stuff. You better be teaching in a classroom if you're dictating these exams. You all
Yeah.
better be teaching in a classroom. And I'm going to tell you now, I don't care if you've taught in the past. You're not teaching towards the current curriculum.
Right, yeah.
We had
Mm,
a funny, I won't get into names, but we had an HR problem regarding like, uh, how do we actually do offer letters and whatnot. And it's like, you can't do an offer letter until you get the offer confirmed. You're like, then how does that work? Yeah, thank you. That was my reaction. So, again, my attitude's always been, if you're going to dictate the policy, you better at least try to do it yourself, or at least be an active practicer. I mean, as person to board of registration, I'm division professional licensure. The statute requires the boards of registrations mostly to have actual professional experience, plus people with non-professional experience as consumer advocates,
mm,
and we designate different professions, different practices. So you have a diversity of people in that practice dictate the regulations of the implementation of regulations in certain industries. Conversely, the ABCC is an example where, Alcohol Beverage Control Commission has nobody on the commission that has any alcohol experience whatsoever. Conversely, at the DPU, the Department of Public Utilities, there is a minimum requirement for certain individuals to have certain experience in utilities, telecom industries. So even in government, people who regulate industries, they're all different regarding the regulators, the commissioners, the
mhm.
board of registration, and so forth. Um, and you get mixed results based on the expertise or lack of regarding your commissioners. And this is kind of my attitude about things like GEMCAS, right? I mean,
Right.
people that should be on the ground doing this every day should be writing these regulations because they see what's really happening. And but this is my attitude. I mean, because I've been doing most of my adult life, consumer stuff and things regarding regulated industries.
Yeah. Seeing as we're talking about education, Tacky, I don't know if you want to talk about the fallout at Harvard, maybe not specifically, but higher education in general.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, 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 yeah. If you're listening to this, you can't see the sighing face I have over here. Um, yeah, as I get older, I mean, I get greatly concerned about higher education because obviously, I come from a family that values education. And my dad pushed us very, 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 very hard. A lot of areas there regarding, being committed to education and working hard at it and getting ahead. And I also value the fact that we need a free flow of ideas, particularly in higher education, to share opinions. But at the same time, though, it seems that their fear of taking stances on what we all of us see as a degree of I don't know morality um, uh, to require people to maintain the basic standards of understanding that certain things in the world are just bad. I don't know, genocide's bad. I don't know what people think anywhere in the conversation. That's a good thing to advocate for. White supremacy in this country is bad, right? Sexual harassment is bad, right? The cultural problems in higher education has been revealed. And cultural education, I'm sure the culture of educational facilities driven from the top, who sets the policy of standard for expectation of the people who go to school there. And expectation is not just, going to class. Expectation is, adhering to a code of conduct. And for example, diverging quickly, I was a big advocate for supporting sexual assault, sexual harassment of students survey. And that got gummed up in the state legislature for far, far too long until we were to actually get onto the governor's desk. I believe it was the middle of COVID, actually, end of 2020, end of 2020, 2020 COVID. So, we would get that to the governor's desk after languishing for too long on something I thought was pretty common sense because the universities were not taking the initiative on that. And you go back in time, Title IX, people can talk about Title IX all the time about, equity in school systems for women in higher ed. But that provision no one talks about that was struck down by the US Supreme Court was to be Title IX qualified, you actually had to have proper ways to address sexual harassment and sexual abuse of women on campuses. The US Supreme Court struck that out of Title IX many
Oh,
years ago. Yeah, that's the part that no one talks about. That's actually very important. And as a result, universities kind of like, pretend nothing bad happens, right? They're protecting the reputation over protecting their students. And this is what I'm getting at. I mean, I think college university students are adults, right? Period. And they should be held responsible for things they say and do. And, you run the university or college or any other higher ed. And it's the responsibility of the administration to set the example and enforce code of conduct, whether it be, going and addressing, harassment on campus, would be, sexual harassment, sexual assault, improving safety, whether it be during the Hong Kong protests where there were disruptions between the citizens from People's Republic of China versus, demonstration of Hong Kong advocates, which didn't get a whole lot of conversation, whether it be the Black Lives Movement or the anti-racism, anti-Asian racism or Asian racism, as I call it. I don't know why I need the anti, but straight up Asian racism. And then, you now have, anti-Semitic and anti-Arab, anti-Muslim, anti-Middle East sentiment flowing through the U.S. And, these universities, particularly this, especially these so-called prestigious Ivy League ones, right, get the highest attention. And, if you don't tolerate this in society, then why are they allowing it to be tolerated on their campuses? And campuses, I've always argued, is a microcosm of society we live in. There's a active effort to create diverse communities on campuses that reflects the world we live in. And if you are unable to say that certain things are just evil straight up, then what are you? And it's I do know that lawyers advise these guys on what they say and shouldn't say. Look, I
right.
get that. And as an attorney, we always tell folks to err on the side of caution, and we always recommend the risk averse component. But exactly who are you placating to? That's always been my question, right? I mean, if you're leading a big organization, and you have donors and boards of trustees and funders and students and public perception. And I get there's a lot of pressure because when you put it in that context, there's a lot of pressure because of all these different components when you lead a school. But who are you exactly speaking to when those questions are asked, right? And and they bear responsibility for that. And in many ways, as I described before, all these other movements and they can pick and choose which movement they want to try to address or cover up, depending on how you want to look at this lens. What is going on here? So, I thought the kind of the plagiarism thing was kind of an excuse. It sniffs of an excuse. I mean, to try to move someone along with a justification that is not the justification that the public really wants to see.
Right. No, exactly. Yeah, it's safe. It's a safe reason, I guess.
Well, I mean, it isn't hard to catch somebody in a citation problem.
Right.
Let's be frank about that. I mean, you think that everybody is perfect on putting citations on academic papers, that somehow that they're flawless on citations?
Oh, of course not. It's impossible. Yeah.
Yeah, because 99% of what you write is cited from somewhere else because you
Right.
build a work of past academics. So, you know, yeah, it was, let's call it what they call a spade, folks. I mean, they were looking for a termination of cause, reason, and it isn't hard to get one if you're just going to go after citation inaccuracies and plagiarism. So, those of you who have ever written term papers and whatnot, or remember that, think about it, how insane it is to get those footnotes in, particularly
Mm.
doing this. And if you're a writer listening that, write academic books and you got to do citations and, the challenges there. And, there's, can you be perfect every time? Well, I'm going to tell you, probably not.
No, no, if you were, the footnotes would be as long as the paper is, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And, footnoting is very important on giving accreditation. But yeah, I mean, we're all human and you could have 100 eyes look at it. But the chances are somebody's going to find something, somewhere. So,
Mhm.
clearly this screams of we need a reason to remove with cause, and not even address, cover up, not address, the issue of anti-Semitic attitude from the administration. And by the way, people may not realize this, but Harvard operated a quota system. Uh, Forget affirmative action. Long before this concept of affirmative action,
Mhm.
always operate on a discriminatory model that if you weren't, white Protestant male, you couldn't go to Harvard.
Mhm. Yep.
Remember that, folks, a long time ago, long before this concept. So, they had, started these like little quota systems, especially with Jewish populations that could actually get to Harvard. And these small groups. Those maybe we're not aware. I did go to Brandeis University, which was founded because Jewish folks couldn't get to an Ivy League school.
Right.
It was a discrimination, and the idea was to try to break down the walls on discrimination through Brandeis. And that's one of their objectives. I know it's considered a very liberal school, but one of the objectives is try to break down barriers. And the school founders recognized that breaking down barriers would take decades,
Mhm.
years, and they're still doing it over there. And sometimes successful, sometimes they're not. I mean, this is just being human. Um, so, so yeah, I mean, Harvard, if you look at these Ivy League schools, I mean, let's not just look at a snapshot of the last decades. You got to look at a snapshot of centuries to understand the history of those schools, not being open to all.
Right. Yeah. We're at the end of the hour, Jackie, believe it or not.
Is it that quickly already?
Yeah. It's been so much fun. Time just flies.
Well, I've just been rambling for essentially the whole time. So it's always good to talk about off-topic stuff now with the legislature. I mean, as you all know, I
Yeah.
kind of that, but yeah, can I do a quick consumer protection plug?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, no, just remind folks. I mean, even the holidays are ended, we're going to tax season soon. The scams are back on. People speak more than one language on robocalls. Chinese being most popular. That if you don't give us money, we're going to deport you. Calls are started up again. You may be seeing emails saying that your Facebook account password's locked. Here's the code you need to access your Facebook or TikTok or Twitter or X or whatever, and you look at the email, say like facemail.com or something like that, delete it. If you never asked for the security password, definitely do that. Now it's actually happening on your cell phones too, telling you to ask for security code. Please click link. You didn't do it, you don't do it. And then also there's deep fakes. And this is the one that's scary now. Is now having more deep fakes. So wanted to forget about Chat GDP. I mean, there's already current artificial intelligence technology now. Forget Chat GDP, where they can, scourge the internet, find videos of you or images of you, and then proceed to send, video images, whether it be, by text message or video call, of a questionable number. They try to convince you to give the money or, potentially maybe a hostage situation with your kid, which is true. It happens in Asia a lot right now. Obviously call law enforcement right away. Don't just give people money. But I mean, they're coming in through here now, not just on email. They're coming in through text messages. They're coming through phone calls. It is a whole new avenue of scammers these days. So if you don't know what it is, you're pretty confident you didn't ask for something. Don't click on it. Don't call back, and most certainly do not hand them any information that can get to any of your money, whether it be credit cards or bank accounts. If you're not sure, call law enforcement or call the FTC. And obviously, my office, anybody's elected office, would be happy to do follow up and check with our regulatory agency contacts to find out if there is something not kosher here. But yeah, and just because the holiday season's over, I know the gift card scam is always still good, out there that, give us gift cards in exchange for X and Y. I had a friend who had a dog lost. They tried to scam them to give them gift cards in exchange for said dog. I mean, come on. I mean, something is not right here. So if you're questioning about it, you should, and just follow those questioning instincts to the end. But tax season's coming. Again, several favorite ones is, the IRS is looking for money. You get deported if you don't give us money. And then you got the hostage-ish type situations like, hey, Dad, I broke my leg, I'm in the hospital, your kid's somewhere out of state, and give me money now because I need to pay for medical bills. Well, hang up and say, okay, I got a bad line, let me call you back.
Right. It's just that simple. Yeah, just verify.
Yeah, and you got the spoofing's a little bit less, but it's still out there where you see phone numbers, that's basically your phone number appearing on phone through this reverse calling hack. And you're questioning what's going on. And they may pretend to be from like T-Mobile, Verizon, or AT&T saying, hey, we're calling you for a problem, we're running a test, right? So, not like I encourage suspicious behavior, but if you're fairly confident you did not ask for something, you probably didn't.
Exactly. Yeah. Common sense and check with a trusted friend or relative or law enforcement, like you said.
Absolutely. And, obviously go to the FTC website, and the state consumer website and Attorney General's website. And, there'll be a lot of other helpful tips and information on that. But, I'd like to end today's, call. I know it's January 4th, the holidays are done, but, we're moving to a new season of scammers.
How do we get a hold of you, Tacky?
617-722-2370, 617-722-2370 is the office number, tackey.chan@mahouse.gov, tacky.chan@mahouse.gov is my email. I actually can't find my email for now. Right, holiday season, actually do see your emails. The X accounts at Tacky Chan, obviously State Representative Tacky Chan Facebook account, and we have tackychan.org for some reference numbers, and MAlegislature.gov, MAlegislature.gov. You don't have to ask me for where Bill is; you can find it there, and also watch all our public hearings and all our formal and informal sessions at your leisure. And it's actually also a great resource at mass.gov, mass.gov. Is the state website. And you can just, do a web search, what you're looking for and put mass.gov at the end, to find resources you're looking for at state government.
Excellent. Appreciate it as always. And Happy New Year again. Happy healthy. And we'll see you next week.
Happy New Year, and I'll talk to you in a week's time.